Welcome to the Midweek message. We're taking some verses from Proverbs chapter 26 and gathering a little bit of biblical wisdom. I'm reading from today's English version, sometimes called the Good News Bible. And in Proverbs chapter 26, verse 1, praise for a fool is out of place, like snow in summer or rain at harvest time. Curses cannot hurt you unless you deserve them. They are like birds that fly by and never light. You have to whip a horse, you have to bridle a donkey, and you have to beat a fool. If you answer a silly question, you are just as silly as the person who asked it. Give a silly answer to a silly question, and the one who asked it will realize that he's not as smart as he thinks. And those are verses 1 through 5 from Proverbs chapter 26. Let's look at them individually. Verse 1, praise for a fool is out of place, like snow in summer or rain at harvest time. If you praise a fool, and scripturally, a fool is not just someone who lacks knowledge, but it's also has something to do scripturally about the character of the person. If you praise a fool, they will continue in their foolish ways. There has been research done that indicates that even children today who are subject to overpraise don't do as well in life as those to whom praise is given in moderation and correction is given in moderation. But praise for a fool is out of place, like snow in summer or rain at harvest time, like inclement weather or weather that is not in line with what normally happens during that time of year. That's verse 1. Verse 2, curses cannot hurt you unless you deserve them. They are like birds that fly by and never light. Don't take every word to heart. Curses can't hurt you, but if they're true, and a curse biblically is a prediction of wrong or a revelation of someone's bad character, not what we call today cussing. Curses can't hurt you. They're like birds that just fly over and never light. But please don't deserve them. Verse 3, you have to whip a horse, you have to bridle a donkey, and you have to beat a fool. For people to act appropriately, they must be chastened and controlled even as animals, particularly if they're people of bad character or people who will not listen. They do not observe admonitions. They have to be chastened. They have to have negative consequences. Just like you have to whip a horse and bridle a donkey, you have to beat a fool. Verse 4, if you answer a silly question, you are just as silly as the person who asked it. Now verses 4 and 5 seem to be saying opposite, or giving opposite advice of the same situation. But let's look at them. If you answer a silly question, you're just as silly as the person who asked it. We must understand that not everything that comes our way is legitimate. And there are some people that try to engage you in silly thoughts and silly speech. And if you get trapped in that, there's no end to some arguments and some disagreements. And so if you answer a silly question, you're just silly, just like the person who asked it, and that's proved by your being involved. And then verse 5 says, give a silly answer to a silly question, and the one who asks it will realize that he's not as smart as he thinks. So verse 4 says, don't answer a silly question. Verse 5 says, do answer a silly question. And verse 5 says that by answering a silly question, you will show the person who was the asker of the question that they're not as smart as they think they are, because you have turned their wit or lack thereof on them. The answer to the discrepancy between these verses is that you have to use wisdom. Sometimes it's best not to get caught up in silly conversations, but sometimes it's best to be involved in the conversation to put an end to it.